Because she kept running away from the ball.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Outer Belt. I'm Patrick. And you all know my friends.
Chili.
Buttermilk.
Eric.
And Jerry.
And we are the Outer Belt crew. We're so happy you're with us. It's our first real show back from the 2023 summer for.
What year are we in? 2024.
I don't know what's happening
It
here.
was the 2024 winter-spring season.
It was the winter spring 2020. What?
2024 winter-spring season, so we're back
Yes, and we're back from that. And you heard our recap for the summer, last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And this is our first real episode, and we're back, and we couldn't be more thrilled to be here. And let me tell you, when I say this man is chilly, it's only because he's been inside for at least 5 hours.
At least 5 hours.
Because before that, you were not chilly.
I was not.
What were you?
On fire.
And not like, this man is on fire.
No.
I mean, like,
I'm about to melt.
do you know what I saw today?
What you saw today?
And you'll have a hard time imagining this.
I will.
The local news channel here
Yeah.
said today was the hottest day on record.
Ever?
This day.
I saw
This
that
on
a
this
lot of
day?
places
Wow.
were
This
going
day.
to break that.
95?
7.
97.
97.
97
Wow.
in August. Who'd have thunked?
Did you see the corn?
Maze?
Nope. Hold
Utopia.
on. I don't know if I have this right. The corn humidity levels of the Midwest, we're included in the Midwest, that we're having right now, and it's where it's so hot, and the corn is producing so much moisture into the air that the humidity is ridiculous. That's why it gets so hot and humid.
Is that what causes that?
Yeah, it's called corn sweating, I think it is. Please don't quote me on that.
I saw that headline today, though, about the corn humidity. Yeah.
It's corn humidity.
Yeah.
And because the Midwest is covered in so much corn, this time of year, humidity is at its highest peak because of the heat. But it does like 30,000 gallons per acre or something
Wow.
is what moisture is
would've
being
thought?
released.
I saw that same article. I didn't read
I
it.
need
I
to-
only saw the headlines.
Yeah, the headlines.
Because I thought it was talking about when you're eating fresh boiled corn on the cob and you get that sweat happening. I thought that's what they were talking
No,
about with
no.
the humidity.
So, I mean, we're not just having thunderstorms, which I thought it was weird that it didn't like maybe go up in the air and create clouds and then
It's
create
been odd. It's been very
rain
dry.
or whatever. But all it's doing is just putting moisture into the air.
It's been pretty wild because
I just thought that was weird.
I thought so stupid. The sprinkler system in my yard broke. So it worked last summer,
Yep.
and we in fall you have to winterize it here because the freezing table is at so many feet, and
Right.
if you don't, your cracks will break and it explodes. So we winterize it and have the company come out every year and do all that stuff. So we did all that this year again, like usual. Summertime, I don't have to bring the company out. I know how to fire everything back up, and it works fine. Well, for whatever reason, it don't work. We got valves that are busted. We got all
no.
kinds of issues. Not from being improperly weatherized, just they're old and they need to be replaced. And so we were going to, got a quote to have them come out there and they fix everything for you, right? And we were like, we'll get it later. It later became later and became later and became
Right.
later, and then we never did anything about it. And our beautiful lawn that we've had fertilized and been taken care of for a couple years to
no.
finally get it to look nice looks like a haunted mansion cemetery out front, doesn't it? I mean, like,
Looks-
You know what, though?
Giant-
Looks like a hayfield.
giant splots of brown grass, and it's like, oh, man.
You know what?
But there's
We have a neighbor who's a retired firefighter.
yes.
And he comes out there and he manicures his lawn every other day at least. Comes out with no shirt on, gets himself a little sun. His lawn is lush and gorgeous.
Yes.
Right now, his lawn is as brown as everybody else's because it's been so hot and dry.
Yeah.
We haven't got the rain. When we first moved here, Melissa and I, 2 years ago, her thing was we don't have to water the grass. It rains so frequently.
Almost every
other
almost
day,
every
you're getting some
everything,
sort of
afternoon shower.
precipitation
Yep.
that's taking care of watering things. We haven't had that the last couple of weeks, so everybody's lawn looks like that right now.
Yeah.
So even if you had the sprinkler system working, you'd be watering
nonstop.
Dead brown grass.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of crazy too because when it's this hot outside and you have that much sunlight, they say don't water your grass because you'll literally boil it, like fry
Right,
it.
yeah.
You'll fry it. You'll
Yeah.
kill your grass with your water and sun. So it's a lose-lose situation, but it's frustrating. I
Yeah,
mean,
we're not getting any grass sweat this year. As much corn sweat as we're getting,
Well,
no grass
What were
sweat.
you going to say, Jerry? I saw
Got
you
a
over
fun
there.
little fact for you.
Yes.
let's have it.
The average size cloud. Do you know how much it weighs?
Ooh.
I don't.
No.
An average cloud weighs 1.1 million pounds
Wow.
Wow.
from all the water.
Wow.
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 Gee, that's crazy.
That's why the airplanes have a hard time going up through 'em.
Right.
Yeah.
They got
So-
to
Taking the same
muscle
I
their
found
way
out-
through the weight.
Yeah. You ever been flying and taken out of an airport and you hit a chunk of ice in the clouds?
No.
I've had it happen to me once. Dad, I remember talking to Dad years ago and it happening to him, and because it's like, I mean, it's like you literally feel like, oh, we just hit something.
Huh.
And it's
Interesting.
crazy.
Chunk of ice.
There's
Go
an
ahead.
article here on Forbes.com about the corn sweat. 1 acre of corn can release 4,000 gallons of
There we
water a
go.
day.
I was a little.
4,000
I
gallons.
I was a
of
little
water
big
a
with
day
30.
from
How
an
do we
acre
capture
of
that?
corn.
Could we put a dome over it
Yeah, right.
and like a dehumidifier
Yeah.
and then use that
Just distill it.
dehumidification?
Distill the corn sweat.
Just
Yeah,
go straight into
exactly.
a
Yeah.
copper still.
Copper still and see what happens.
They release the vapor into the air and just everybody feel better. Oh my gosh, that's
I
funny.
wonder if it self-waters itself. Like, I don't understand. I get it,
self
it's
waters.
this-
Self water. Okay, got it.
but it's just creating humidity. Like, it doesn't form a cloud. It's not.
But does the humidity
Well-
get down to the roots or not?
That's the question.
I don't
think.
know. I don't know that information. I'm not a corn scientist or a
Well,
farmer.
you brought
by
us the
any means.
corny facts.
You did bring
I
the corn
well, and I
facts.
was off on my corny
Yeah.
facts. I just didn't
Yeah.
realize that's why the humidity levels go up so much this time of year in the Midwest. Because typically we
Yeah.
don't have humidity,
Correct. It's very dry.
but because of the heat, right now we're in a heat wave, like you said,
Mhm.
breaking temperatures for Ohio. That this corn sweat effect is happening.
Well, it's weird too because I feel like when I'm like out and about, or I'm at the yard, or at a Freightliner dealership where I was today, or if I'm over at your house or something, it stays. It's super humid and intense heat, and then I feel like if I'm in my back patio, it's not as humid. It can be as hot, but it's not as humid. And I always thought that was weird because I've got a river back there. Like,
Right.
hello, a river's going to cause
Yeah.
humidity, but I wonder if it's because it's flowing. It is constantly flowing water. It's dam controlled, so it is constantly flowing. Maybe not faster sometimes than others,
Sure.
but I wonder if that's what doesn't allow that humidity to it's not really baking in the sun like a lake would be. It is constantly flowing water.
You're
If
kind of in a
that's what's pulling it
Funnel
out,
of air too, though. I mean,
it's kind of a canyon.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah.
ish, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe
Yeah.
that airflow happens.
My house gently slopes down to the water, and on the other side it's complete. It's a cliff.
Yeah.
Like
Your
a
house
legitimate
gently
cliff.
slopes. My guitar gently weeps.
That's because of the corn sweat.
Right. Exactly.
You should climate control that thing.
Yeah, I should.
I tell you what is weird with it being as humid as it is. I have not had to run the humidifier in the basement. Like
That's interesting.
it's very interesting. Normally I do have to run that thing, and it go fill empty the bucket out all the time. And last year I had to have it literally sitting in the bathroom, dripping straight in the sink, just constantly running because it's pulling so much humidity out. And this year, haven't really had to do that.
Hmm.
So maybe I just have the AC working differently. It's probably because it's hotter.
Yeah.
So the AC is working more, and it's probably pulling the humidity. Okay, we solved that.
Do you know what
Well-
I find for high temperatures? We're not even cresting the 100-degree mark, though, are we? They're like 98s, 93s,
Correct.
95s.
It's high for the area.
Which is weird because from Oregon, which is where I hail from, you're talking over the hundreds to make a
Yeah.
mark happen. 105, 107, those kind of marks are creating record breaking. So for here, I find it a little different. The corn sweat was something new.
Well, even in South Louisiana, I mean, we have humidity. We just have it. Marshes,
Yeah.
swamps. Even down there, it'll be 95 degrees. In here, 95 degrees, the heat index might be, 98?
Yeah.
97, 98? Down there, the heat index is 105
Yeah.
or 108.
Sure.
So I'm
Sure.
used to, the heat index, which is how does it really feel, being 10, 15, 20 degrees hotter than it actually is. Whereas up here, it really makes very little difference. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a few degrees, but not by much. But I think today a high humidity day, it was like 45% humidity. In South Louisiana, that's dry. It's super dry. I mean, like, really, I'm used to seeing 70, 80, 90% humidity. You lived in Hattiesburg. They're not crazy difference from us. Same thing where they get crazy high humidity, don't they?
That, and I was raised in Florida, so
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
like 90% humidity is not shocking.
you step out of the shower and you're just soaked.
Still
Yeah,
wet.
yeah.
You dry off and you're wet
You
again.
style
Yeah.
your hair and it falls as soon as you walk out. It
That
goes
is
flat.
that is something different that is different. So, like he said, you get out of the dryer. Out of the dryer.
That's a good place to get out of.
A nice little tumble dry.
Right.
You get out, you dry yourself
I want
off.
fluff.
I remember drying myself off, and this was a regular occurrence. And brush the teeth, do the hair, shave. And by the time I was doing all that, I was completely wet again
Yeah.
because it's just so hot and humid, or so humid rather, not even hot, just humid. And up here, that doesn't happen. Once I dry off,
Yeah.
I'm dry.
Even with the humidity we do get, I don't find it that kind of humidity.
It's not.
No.
And it never really hits that high.
Yeah.
Push through this a little bit because come Sunday, Monday, we're back down into
That's
the low
beautiful
70s.
temperatures.
Yeah.
The humidity's back down into the low 40s. Like, it's going to be awesome.
Yep.
I made the first fall soup today. I didn't intend to make soup. It's obviously a hot day, like you were all saying, but I'm like, oh, I had the leftover chicken Costco carcass, and it just makes a great soup. So I'm like, fall will be here soon. Not that I'm rushing summer, but fall will be here soon. Good soups.
I know. I can already smell the pumpkin spice.
I've already
70s.
been drinking it.
Oh,
That's not fair. You were drinking it in April.
And
No, it's been 3 weeks.
I
our
got a
sycamore trees in Bridge Park are already changing color and
I
falling
know.
off.
I've seen it a few. Well, that's.
I'm not ready
I,
for
I
that.
don't think it's temperature. I think that's lack of water.
lack of water. Hot.
Oh, they're
Our-
dying.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
dying.
Our little willow tree in the front has created a brown grass effect. So crunchy brown leaves. They're little leaves. It happens this time of year, and basically it's saying you need to start raking and bagging us or do something with us. It's the first tree to go with its leaves. I don't know why. I think it's the first to bloom, so maybe that's why. But
I remember living as a kid. I think we had a 1/4 acre yard, and raking that up and hating it, just every bit of it, hating it. Moving again to a small yard and then hating that, and that's when I discovered the lawnmower would actually mulch that stuff down, and
I'm raising my hand.
became
Yes, I agree.
became a big fan of that. But I look at something like now, I live on an acre and a half, and I'm like, I can't imagine
Bagging all of it.
because my yard's pretty much all lawn. Like, it's not
Right.
like there's a treed area where you don't have to really worry about cutting it. You have to cut the whole thing almost.
And we don't
And-
have very many evergreens.
No, so we lose a lot of leaves, and I'm like, can you imagine if we had to rake that sucker?
We raked the
It's
first
like
year.
we did. Our backyard was, 6 inches deep in
least.
leaves from that
Yes.
big oak tree we had back
Yeah.
there. And last year, Melissa was out there every third day mulching leaves.
Small correction, it's a maple tree, which has much bigger leaves. And for those people that know oak versus maple, these are like
Maples are huge.
5-inch leaves, and it was 6 inches deep. We also came back from a vacation. We decided not to do vacations during leaf falling.
Yeah.
Well, just because it was so much work.
Yeah.
And then at the time, we didn't know any better, and we bagged, and we had like 55 bags. Vince is on the phone. I know we've shared this story, but Vince was on the phone with the city of Columbus saying, how many bags can we pack? Set street side because they pick them up street side. Can I double stack them? He said, and it like we didn't know really what to do. And then last year, he's like, what if we mulch them with the mulcher? So we did some research, and it said as long as you don't have big piles of leaves, because that'll kill your lawn and it'll
Yeah.
suffocate it, you can mulch. So we're out there, and he's raking the leaves from underneath where the tree falls way out into the lawn so they're not piley, and then I'm mowing. And like
Well,
Vince said, I was mowing like every 3 days to keep up with the leaves
Yeah,
that were
the
falling.
roots from that tree are also above the ground in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So you can't get the lawnmower around under there because the roots are there. So yeah,
Yep.
was-
But
That's
we,
how most oak
it
trees grow
worked
in
out-
South Louisiana.
it's a maple.
it's a maple. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yep, that's okay.
But it was still a lot less time
Then
than
bagging.
bagging
Plus,
all
we
those
save money
dang
on
leaves.
bags.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you gotta have good bags. You can't have the cheapos. They
Oh,
they
yeah.
fall apart as soon
They
as you
do.
grab
Well,
them, and yeah.
You gotta buy the paper bags because our Columbus
Oh, the city
requires the
bought paper,
paper
okay.
bags for leaves and yard
And
waste.
any dampness, like if you bag
yeah.
today and they don't come until next Thursday or Tuesday, any dampness in those leaves makes the bag soggy. And when you move it from your storage shed
Falls apart.
out, it just blows the
Falls
bottom
apart.
out. So
Yep.
it was a waste of time using that bag. So again, we've learned, because again, we're both from the West Coast. This is not something that you do is bag leaves.
Yeah.
So we've learned we're mulching. Mulching.
So we have a company that comes and mows the lawn. I actually like cutting grass. It's one of the things I enjoy. It's my
Me too.
therapy. But acre and a half. I didn't have a lawnmower for it. I was going to have to buy one for it. When I saw how much it was and how cheap. So one thing you can done really affordably here in Columbus, which is one of the few things you can do affordably, is lawn care. Like, there's a lot of lawn care companies. And so it's not crazy expensive to have your yard mowed. Whereas in South Louisiana, we had a lot of companies, but it was still expensive. Here, it's really not bad. And they come weekly, even into the fall, when really the grass only needs to be cut once every 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
Sure.
They come weekly just to maintain the control over the leaves. Yep.
Nice.
And it's what keeps my yard from ever having, because we really don't. We do have a couple areas where it's mulched,
Yeah.
where they'll accumulate, but like where the actual green grass is, our brown grass for right now, that stays pretty mulch, pretty nice.
We talked about actually mowing the leaves into the bag. I think I had started with that last year, and then putting those bagged leaves into the paper bag. And he's like, "Why aren't we just mulching?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's when we did a little more research on making sure it's all spread out so the nitrogen and all that doesn't just kill the lawn come spring.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could see the leaves and the debris also all winter long. You know, the crumbles that were mulched, you could see it. But by the time probably second cutting of spring happened, you couldn't
Gone,
tell.
yeah.
It's just a green lush lawn.
Well, that's the problem with
So-
that's the problem with winter and snow is it just hides everything.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
as soon as the snow melts, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. We still have to deal with that issue.
Yep.
What do y'all do?
HOA.
Oh.
I take care of the inside. They take care of the outside.
There you go.
That's
There you
awesome.
go.
Nice.
There you go. Nice.
That's the difference in mentality. Like, we went looking for a place that didn't have an HOA. You were like, oh no. Like, it's much easier to strike that yearly check than it is
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have to worry about it. I am not cutting the yard. I've done enough of that in my life growing up. No, I don't want nothing to do with it.
Oh,
My
yeah.
hostas
Well,
are
that's-
almost done. Hostas, HOSTA.
Are they
They're a
baking?
plant. They're almost done. They're on the dying. They've
Oh.
bloomed with their blossom of white flowers, and now the leaves are starting to turn yellow.
Yeah.
And Vince read when they start to turn yellow, even at the end of summer, you should actually cut them because they're not providing any nutrients to the leaves anymore. So basically, the plant is kind of done. So instead of like waiting until fall or winter when you normally prune stuff, hostas, you could just kind of get rid of them. And I'm like, maybe one more week, and I'm going out with some scissors, and because they're ugly at this point. They
Yeah.
look half dead. The bloom is blossomed, and maybe every fourth stalk of the blossom has one little white flower. I mean, they're just not doing anything. They're beautiful in the spring and early summer, but come late summer, they're just done. And I don't water ours, and we don't have a watering system, so maybe they would last a little longer if we did water.
We've had a deer-rabbit problem, so ours have never seen the stage where they turn yellow.
Oh,
Yeah, we've had a
Yeah.
Oh,
set
they-
of leaves, little stalk sprouts all over the place.
Yeah.
I forgot
Uh,
your deer eat yours.
Remember all that
Yeah.
bragging I was doing about all the wildlife we
Yeah.
have?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
wildlife.
I'm over
I
it.
didn't realize your deer. I forgot that your deer ate them. We don't have deer. We have rabbits,
So
but our
We
rabbits
have
aren't
those
eating
two.
ours. But our rabbits aren't eating the hostas.
And
Yeah.
you keep smelling the yard.
Yes.
Whenever you cut something, the genetics of the plant want to regrow, to reproduce
Yes.
what they lost. We have fresh hosta growing inside of the
The dead one.
where the
Nice.
it's not
Yeah.
dead yet, but so the deer ate it. Their stalks are pointing up, and we have
But they're
fresh
never gonna get
fresh
there.
hosta growing inside of the stalks.
Right.
Interesting.
The deer will eat it again.
If
Yeah.
they
Yep.
can get to it, but they won't stick their heads inside of the current stalks
They wait.
to get to the new ones.
Oh,
The new growth has to reach out past the
that's
stalks of
interesting.
the old growth
I call
for
ours
them to go after.
I
them.
call ours Jimmy Hostas because no one's seen them. So
Oh, that was good. That was good. My daylily in the front, I've got one just outside in the walkway, and it blooms. It grows and it blooms, and it takes over half the walkway of our steps. It's too big. I need to transplant half of it. But the last 2 summers, I have whacked it once it's done bloomed and done. Like I cut it back, and now it's half the length it was when it originally
Again?
bloomed. And just the green fronds. But it's containable at this point, but it won't grow much bigger because then we're going to get cold weather. So I get 2 blossoms, air quotes on that out of it. I don't get the flower, the orange flower out of it, but the beautiful green leaves, I do get a little frondiness out of it.
Just
But
as long as it's not drooping over and looks like it's about
it was
to die.
drooping over, and that's why I cut it off. Plus, again, it was halfway into the walkway. I don't know why somebody planted it there, but they planted it there.
So I tell you, growing up in Louisiana, Mom would have some plants around the house, but we had like a big azalea bush. We had some box hedges. She was big into ferns. We had ferns. And then we had crepe myrtles on either side of the driveway. So not a lot of flowers, and they kind of, they bloom and go away several times a year, especially in South Louisiana where it never got really cold. And then we had a really nice yard, well-manicured yard, and it was just grass and, keep your sidewalk trimmed and all that stuff. Surprising, little things like that make your house pop. When I moved to the house that I bought in Louisiana, I had a really nice yard. I kept it trimmed. And then in my front yard, next to my front steps, I had this giant, I guess it was like 2 or 3 banana trees. And those grew and were beautiful. And that was really it. Other than that, kept the yard cut, kept the weeds off the driveway, everything's fine. So move up here, and this place has beds like the previous owner put them in. So it's like, okay, well, you got to do something with that because it's ugly.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I never realized the lifespan of a flower because I just never was around it. It never was a thing. You'd see them at the stores. You'd see them on like apartment complexes and stuff like that. But they had people taking care of that stuff. So I never realized like the amount of money that it cost to put the flowers out, the amount of time and energy to make sure you put the right flower out. The importance of, is it full sun, mid little sun, no sun? The importance of this thing drinks like an alcoholic on the side of the road, and this one can't have any water, but like once every 2 weeks, you need to give it a teaspoon. Like just all of that stuff.
Right.
And try to figure out, not only is it all that stuff, but, oh, yeah, it's a region that we never lived in. Because even though Columbus and Louisiana are very similar terrain, flowers are totally different. We're in different, what are the regions, or what are they called?
Zones.
We're in different zones. So, like, I love banana trees. I'm a big fan of them. We can't have them here. Love palm trees.
If you kept them inside.
I'm not keeping a banana tree inside.
That's the only way you can have one year-round.
A lot of banana trees are like strictly just aesthetic, and people whatever them. Mine actually grew bananas. Like that's how nice they were.
Yep.
Palm trees here, I quickly realized. Well, at the end of the year, they're digging them up and putting new palm trees down in spring. They do a lot of that stuff. In the area of town we live in, there is a lot of money here. So, like when you go across the river from my house. You do see along the golf course, they literally bring in trees every year. Trees. Not flowers, trees. They bring in all this stuff, and so that's why it's all perfect. And I'm like, who can spend that kind of money on maintaining a house? It's
HOA.
Again, I was about to say, I reiterate, HOA.
Well, it's crazy. I see why Mom liked ferns.
Yeah. My fern has done well this year outside. I'm looking forward to bringing it in the house for the winter and see how it survives and if I can take it back out.
Again, it's just shocking about and all the flowers that man, they bloom and they're beautiful for a week.
Yes.
And then they're gone.
And your yard has that. Whoever lived here before did that. They did daffodils during daffodils, and then they did irises during irises. I mean, do we
have lilies too or no?
You do have a few daylilies out along right at the entrance to the driveway.
Yeah.
But whoever did it knew what blooms on what season.
Yeah.
And they're all planted in the same flower bed, but they shoot up at different times and provide continuous beauty during the 4 weeks of spring.
Yes, but that's it.
That's it. And then once that's done,
see you again next 11 months.
That's right.
That's been so strange to me. Is that ebb and flow. I'm just not used to it.
What a neat thing.
Part of growing up, right? I tell you who got it right. There's a tractor out there running, tractor trailer, not a John Deere, but like a ARI sleeper
Yeah.
on a big tractor, and under the window, they painted in a flower box. So it's actually like the sleeper, I think, is white, and then it's got a flower box painted on the window, so it
There you
looks
go.
like. And I'm like, that's how
That's
you do it. You never have to worry about
Ah,
potting
watering.
soil or soil. We had to buy soil. Like, isn't that just dirt in the ground? No, it's not, because you got to have nutrients and minerals, and it's just whatever. And then the humidity that comes off the flowers. So it was.
I don't think they're having flower sweat though.
I don't think they are either. Only when they see someone walk around with that Roundup, then they start sweating like crazy. Not the daffodils. So it was mentioned
Yes.
that for this season, one thing that people have inquired about possibly doing would be for us to share a little bit of Hyfield behind the scenes. That doesn't roll off the tongue very well. We need to workshop that. Hyfield after dark. No, that's a different thing. Hyfield at sea. Already got that. Hyfield. Help me here.
At Expo? No, we've done that too. Hyfield.
Hyfield
I like behind the scenes.
behind the scenes, but
Hyfield.
Hyfield in the making.
Ooh, I like that.
something. Hyfield in the making.
Hyfield history.
Hyfield a peek behind the curtain. No.
Ooh.
Hyfield behind the candle. No.
I was about to say that. I swear to God, I was.
What was that? What was it? Who was that? A candelabra thing? That was
Vince, you got one?
who's the candelabra guy? He's from
Liberace.
that's the one. Liberace, thank you.
Don used to call our truck Liberace.
Are you serious? That's funny.
It's hysterical.
Hyfield sneak peek?
I like the one three times ago. What do we
Yeah.
call it?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Hyfield
Hyfield
Behind the scenes?
behind this. No, sneak peek.
I just said that.
A sneak peek at Hyfield.
Oh my goodness.
A Hyfield sneak.
At any rate,
Anyways,
we'll workshop
we'll
it.
workshop that. We'll get back with you. I said, okay, well, let's do it. If we're gonna do it, let's do it.
There we go.
A brief Hyfield lesson. I thought it'd be fun. So if we're gonna do this, and let's just break it up and let's get into incredibly rich detail that's gonna bore all of y'all. But if you asked for it, you got to be careful what you asked for. So Eric was born.
That's too far back.
July.
Why are we talking about Eric, by the way?
Because he's older than me. I was going chronologically.
Oh,
So in 2012,
that's when he was born?
no, but
You look
that's
great.
in 2012. Eric and I were living in Louisiana, and I had a illustrious career in the world of sound and production. I did sound, video, and lighting for major concerts and corporate events and all kinds of wild stuff. Loved it. It was a great time in my life. It was probably my first peek behind airplanes and got me to that because part of that lifestyle is you do get to fly in some private jets and stuff. Was really, really happy doing that line of work. And then the, shall we say, 2008 housing crisis finally caught up to Louisiana. So because we were such an oil, petrochemical, industry-based economy down there, we didn't get all those 2008 housing crises. The resale property or the housing prices didn't drop. We didn't feel any of that bubble. It was very strange. We were one of the few places in the country that didn't experience that.
That's interesting.
Now I had friends that had family homes or vacation homes in Florida, and they felt it. But in Louisiana, we really didn't feel South Louisiana. We really didn't feel it because there's so much in that petrochemical world. We did pretty well for a while, and then by 2012, like I said, the economy grinding to a halt just finally reached us. If you don't have any money, you're not spending it on entertainment, which means you're not going to concerts, which means they're not putting them on. And then those of us that supported that industry don't have work. Yes?
Can I tell you something? I know you've shared this story, and I don't mean to interrupt. I don't honestly remember 2012. I must have been too young at the time, 20s. But I can only equate it, or I just don't remember it.
That's a hell of a math problem she just worked out there.
Yeah, I don't.
20s.
20s. I was 20s.
14 years ago, 20s.
But what I'm saying is
Yeah.
I don't remember it. Like,
Okay.
it wasn't on my mind, right?
Yes.
But I could only equate it to maybe COVID, when COVID's entertainment industry
Shut down.
shut down. So every time you've shared this story, and I know maybe for some viewers it's the first time you're hearing it, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. I can only imagine how it was from your stories to COVID, and I clearly remember COVID and how there was nothing. There were no concerts. There was no live entertainment at your local bar. There was nothing. And the way you always share your story, it feels that shut out and shut down. And for those entertainers during that time, I don't know, just weighs kind of heavy on my heart every time you tell your story about that.
Well,
so anyway, that's all I have to say about that, I guess.
I will say I definitely think COVID was a worse time. Everything kind of ground to a halt and slowed way down, but it never was completely turned off.
Sure.
You could still go pick up gigs here or there. You could still make some money.
Right.
But the money we were making and the what we were doing before, that was gone. So I was trying to figure out what could I do with my life. We all knew the economy was going to come back. We all knew production and concerts and all the stuff was going to come back. So I really looked for, like, what can I do for now to make a little cash and sustain myself until it comes back. I had a cargo van at the time, and that led me into singing about cargo vans for expediting. Did my research, as one does, or should do, and found out that there's just not a lot of money in it, and then B, the cargo van I owned was too old. Most of these companies do have age restrictions on the equipment they will sign on, and mine was just literally too old. Had 66,000 miles on it. It was
wow.
It didn't have a lot of miles at all. It was in great condition. It was just too old. Through that research, what I did find out was this whole world of straight trucks. That got me intrigued because I saw straight trucks with sleepers, and I researched Landstar and Panther and FedEx Custom Critical, where we ended up, and there was also back then there was like Express One and a few others that are no longer gone, or they've been bought out and rebranded or something. I saw this idea and I sent it over to Eric.
At the time, I was working at Jason's Deli as a delivery driver, and after being there for like 3 or so years, the girl who was in charge of delivering to the chemical plants along the Mississippi River, she did something that ended up getting her fired, and
we call that let go.
Let go. Behind her, I had been at Jason's Deli the longest, so I ended up picking up her work, which left me, like I said, delivering to the chemical plants up and down the Mississippi River with nice tips. Enough that I didn't complain about it at all. I consider myself pretty lucky at that point in life to be making that kind of money.
It was a sweet gig.
Yes, very sweet. In the process of that, at some time...
it was the oil spill, wasn't it?
No, one step before that.
Oh.
Somehow I met up with Patrick. We became friends, and so we were together at the time I was working at Jason's Deli.
Yeah, by 2012 I'd moved in.
And while I was doing that, that's when his recession happened with the sound industry. So they did have the oil spill.
That's Deepwater Horizon.
Horizon happened in the Gulf. And the people that were doing the cleanup put contracts out for food delivery. And apparently Jason's Deli won the contract for it. So now Jason's Deli is in charge of pallets and pallets of lunch boxes that had to be delivered to Venice, Louisiana, which, if you know that on the map, that's where the gravel road stops and the water starts.
Yeah, that's the
end of the earth.
That's the end of the Mississippi River.
You can't find anything past that without like a license or
a boat,
professional or a boat.
You gotta have a boat. And also Gulfport, Mississippi, right?
I forgot the
name.
It
was Gulfport because
it was in Mississippi.
Pascagoula.
Started with a P. Can't remember for which one it was.
It might have been Pascagoula.
Or Picayune.
Not Picayune.
Yeah, I think it was Pascagoula. It's where
I'd have to look it up.
It's close to where the shipyard is down there. I think it was Pascagoula. You might be right. Anyways, doesn't matter.
Anywho, well, to begin with, I love the job. Along with making good tips, delivering to the plants along the Mississippi, I got to go to new places every day. It was not a show up at the office, spend 8 hours there, and leave miserable in the afternoon. I got to show up, find out the exciting places I'm going to be bringing food to, and hop in my vehicle and go make some people happy by bringing their food to them. So when the oil spill happened, Jason's won the contract to deliver food to them. They found out the hard way that you need Class C driver's license to be driving a box truck with food in it.
Oh.
So whenever they found that out, then we had to go take classes, get our Class C driver's license. And that was also the time when Patrick wasn't doing the sound thing anymore, so I invited him to come ride with me to each one of the locations.
That was when it was starting to slow down. It wasn't quite, because that was 2011, so it wasn't quite completely shut down, but it was definitely starting to...
It was slowed down enough where you could find the time to come with me.
Yeah. And those were grueling. Those were like show up at 9 o'clock at night and then make the round trip, which, you know, I never did the Venice one, but like going to Pascagoula and back at night when you're not a commercial driver who's used to it.
Right.
Plus, even with my regular deliveries on the Mississippi River, I'm used to showing up in the morning and being done like 2 in the afternoon. They get to go home. This is a complete change, showing up at 9 o'clock at night to deliver and then be back at 5 in the morning. So it's a complete change of schedule for me. That, along with trying to do my regular day deliveries on the river.
What's a Class C?
That wasn't every day. I do remember that. They wouldn't let you do it back to back. The laws wouldn't allow it. But Class C in Louisiana is a chauffeur's license.
Okay.
So, like, if you're an executive car, black car, a limousine service,
so what are you
have to
chauffeuring
have
the
it.
food?
It's mainly because it was a box truck, commercial box truck.
So was it weight differences?
I think so. There's some rules about it. What I think especially when it comes to freight, I think it really boils down to insurance and some other things like that
sure.
Dictate it. Because even when I was doing sound, I drove a 26-foot and a 16-foot truck several times doing gigs, and even got pulled over and weighed, and it never was an issue. So there was something special about what y'all are doing. You might have had a 33,000-pound truck when you did your.
It was delivering food. I can imagine boxes of food being fairly heavy.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you got to remember, so this was crazy because Eric told me about all this, all right? But I didn't never go to Jason's Deli or his work. Like, we'd go maybe sometimes Sunday after church and grab some food because I do love me some Jason's Deli. It's
very
excellent.
good.
Very good. And that salad bar with those corn muffins. Anyways, y'all
Squirrel.
got those corn sweats going on.
Oh, that's good.
So what they did was it wasn't the location you worked at. It was actually a different location in town. They actually rented this. So their storefront was in a strip mall. They rented the entire same size restaurant next to it to set up.
They just so happen to have vacancy next door to their restaurant.
Yeah.
So they took over that for a short period of time.
And I mean tables
and
just
boxes,
people in there just
line working.
They're just constantly packing these boxes, build the pallets, send them out while they're still packing more so they can get. It was insanity.
And this happened for over a week, because imagine how long it takes for people to clean up the Gulf.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was
from
months.
oil.
It was months. I remember it very well. It was months, and what a great man. Jason's made bank on that. Anyways,
I was gonna say, anywho, so that gave me a little experience driving a larger vehicle than I was used to, and I wasn't scared or nervous, or I might have been a little nervous, but I quickly got used to it. So that got me used to driving a commercial truck. Then when Patrick did his research and he found out about a special division of FedEx that dealt with not daily deliveries, but kind of like what I was doing with food, pick up in one place, drop off somewhere else, and never the same place twice, and it sounded kind of exciting, and that made me comfortable with his next step in our adventure.
Well, I think also by that point, if I'm not mistaken, so by mid-2012 when we started researching this and we had to go get our CDLs, because even he had a Class C had to be upgraded to a Class B. I had to go from a regular license to a Class B, the hazmat and the tanker and all that stuff, because we did all that from day one. Jason's was asking you to come in and do food prep too, not just deliver, right?
No. It'd been much later in my work with them. It must have been 5 years since I had been there. maybe a year or two after the spill. They tried me to get in-house more and more, putting more food together, and I hate putting food together.
I remember talking
Yeah.
with you about it, and you were like, "I was hired to be a driver." Like,
Yeah, that was
like,
the
that's-
excitement of the job.
I don't
That's
wanna-
what I
I don't
came
wanna
in to do.
I don't want to be cutting baklava and stuff.
I don't want to be
Which
putting
I don't
po'
want to.
boys and sandwiches together.
Yeah, and I don't want to cut baklava either. I mean, I love baklava; it's delicious, but that is a sticky, nasty.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Can you imagine getting a sheet of that and having to? Oof. Oh, well, of course you can, but
It'd be hard
Anywho.
not to lick the knife.
it'd be hard not to just eat it all until you're sick of it.
Yeah, you're sick of it.
I love baklava.
Anywho, so that started changing a little more and more what I did at work, and I got more and more tired and aggravated with it. So eventually, yeah, I was willing to find another job.
Nice.
Wasn't actively doing it, but it'd be easy to pull me away from what I was doing to do something new.
So I actually started looking around, trying to find a fleet owner because I read enough that said, "Hey, if you're going to do this, you're going to buy your own truck. Go drive for a fleet owner first, learn the business, and then go buy a truck." Like that's what most people do. They go drive for a fleet owner for a year or two, and then buy a truck. And at that point, fleet owners are very small, 4 or 5 trucks. That's it. FedEx actually had a rule that said no more than 5 trucks. We said, okay, we'll go find a fleet owner. We'll go drive for them and see if we like it or not. Worst case, we don't like it. We'll come back, and I'll go back into sound, and Eric can go back into catering because we knew he could get a job anywhere because he had all those contacts on the river and everything. So it was like, cool, let's give that a shot. We looked everywhere, and everybody kept saying, no, we don't, not interested. No. Are you two guys driving? No, we're good. Like, a lot of people. And so I was getting pretty bummed out and frustrated by it. And it was actually Eric that found an ad.
I decided one day to go look on Craigslist, that
Yeah.
old advertiser. Is that still
Wow.
around?
I don't
It
don't
is.
know.
It is.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's the go-to place though.
No.
I haven't been forever. But
It's been around for years. I'm surprised it's still here. But anyway, yeah, one day he told me about the job, the job he was looking for and somebody to go contract with, and I just said, what the heck? I'll go look on Craigslist for commercial truck drivers. And I just so happened to found the Craigslist, and I found Expediter Services, who was advertising for custom critical drivers, our expedited truck delivery.
Yep.
And told Patrick what I had found, and
you emailed it to me. You emailed me the ad, and so I
he
had.
went in and did his research.
I went and I'd already seen their name a few times from doing research,
Mhm.
but I hadn't never seen their advertising or anything. I'd just seen their name before. So this was the first time I was like, oh, here's a phone number. Here's a way to contact them. And they were very much, when I talked to them, they're like, we have this availability at Panther, yada, yada, yada. I, like most people at the time, was like, I want FedEx because, I didn't know any better. I didn't know. You look back on things now, and it's like, okay, I get it. So I said, I want FedEx, and they're like, okay, well, we can do this for you. At that point, they were the only fleet owner allowed to have more than 5 trucks. They had 100 and something at FedEx. They had another 150 or so at Panther. But they were the only ones allowed to do that. Nobody else was. At that point, they were like, you have a pulse and a clean medical card? Come on and drive for us.
Wow.
So they sent us the apps, and which thankful they were, and then we kind of have the same philosophy with our company now because of it. We did the FedEx apps, went through all that. That was old school though. That was like print them out, scan them, email them back. You know what I mean? There was no driver pulse or any of this fancy stuff they have now. And Jerry's shaking his head. He remembers those days. And so we did all that, and then actually ended up, my family was going to Gatlinburg, like just a family vacation. They had a class at FedEx, an orientation that was like the next week. All of our stuff came back clean, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you. Made us the offer. So we, and they had the truck in Ohio. So Expediter Services based out of Memphis, Tennessee, but they actually had the truck sitting in Ohio, maybe 45 minutes from where, or 30 minutes from where FedEx was. So we're like, cool. Rented a car, went and did the family trip in Ohio, and went and did the family trip in Gatlinburg, and find out in Gatlinburg we had to go do drug test. Again, we were brand new. We didn't know about all that. So
to explain how new we were, I'd always been an employee. I'd never been a contractor. Whenever he brought this idea to me and we left for it, I had to tell my boss where I was going at the time. I literally told him, we're going on vacation. I'm going to talk to somebody else about a job. I don't know if I'm going to get hired for an interview or an orientation for something I already got.
We really,
I didn't know what I was walking
we
into.
really didn't know. The communication was nowhere near what it is now. So there was definitely some like, we think we have a job. And I mean, for me, I was a freelance person, so I don't have anybody to work to tell. Eric had already told Jason's like, I don't know if I'm coming back or not because here's what I'm doing and we're not real sure. Like, it was very vague. Like, what you and Delina do, prepping people,
Yeah.
night and day different than what it was when Eric and I went.
Wow.
So, did you feel that way when you went to FedEx? You were like, I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to be here or not.
Absolutely.
It was very strange. And so, like I said, we get to Gatlinburg and we get the email that like, hey, you need to get a drug test done. So I had to write them back and be like, I'm in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And so they found us one. They're like, it's real close. It's over the hill in North Carolina. So Eric and I are like, cool, no big deal.
Over the hill.
It was 3.5 hours away.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, you couldn't have sent us to Knoxville, which is literally an hour away.
And
3.5 hours away.
it's a good thing we waited till the end of our vacation to go do that drug test. We didn't do it in the middle of it.
Yes.
So it wasn't a 3-hour trip both ways.
So we go over there, and it literally, we like following early Google Maps, and we're driving down this country little bitty road. We go this huge valley, and there's a big dam with, I've tried to find it, I can't find it, I don't know where it's at. Huge dam with a big lake behind everything. It's really pretty. And we're driving, and then the road just turns to dirt. And we're like, well, well, that's interesting.
Wow.
Like, we're in this rental like Chevy Corsica or whatever we're in, Cavalier, and it's like, oh, okay, the road just turned to dirt. Let's go a little farther. Let's see if it, maybe it turns back into concrete a little further. We went a little farther, and it turned into sketchy dirt, and we're like, let's turn around. So we turned
Sketchy
around.
dirt.
Yeah, we turned around and got back on the main highway, and then I rerouted the Google Maps, and they actually did find me another way. And I took it, showed up in this sketch drug testing place. I mean, some of them are already sketchy. This one was definitely sketchy. And,
Wow.
like, no names on the building at all. Like, just a little sticker on the glass door. Go in there, do the drug test. I don't remember them having the lights on. I think it was just the lights from the front
Oh
coming
my
in.
goodness.
That was crazy. Did all that. FedEx got the results like the next day or whatever. We still had a long drive back up to Lodi, Ohio, where the TA Lodi, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We
The
go
only,
there.
Only truck stop with a Starbucks.
Yes, great. I love that. That was nice. But we go in there, and they said the guy in maintenance or the shop will have your keys. So we went over there, got the keys. We go to the truck, and no walk around, no introduction. Just like, here's the keys. It's truck this, and this. So we had to go over there, find it. We were scared we were going to get hit with the car. So we unloaded our stuff in the truck and then drove the car over to the front of the TA and left it there. And then the next day we got up, drove the truck to FedEx, did our first day of orientation at FedEx, and then brought the car back to the airport and returned the car. And then drove the truck back to the truck stop. And in the process of just back and forth, the check engine light came on the truck. And not like the little mill light. I mean, the actual check engine light with like the red check engine light.
Oh.
And so we were able to turn it off, turn it back on, and go a little further. And then it came back on. And so we did that back to the truck stop. At that point, we went to the shop, and the guy's like, yeah, the guy that runs Expediter Service Maintenance, he's already called. Here's your new truck. So then we had to go and swap all of our stuff over from one truck to the next. Because back in the day, they used to store their trucks there. They had a deal worked out with them. They don't anymore, but they used to. And so we swapped in the new truck. Then we took that back, and that thing drove great. It was rock solid. The only thing that was crazy about it was a year older, had a few more miles on it, but it was great. And the inside, the layout, identical. It was identical from the other one, except for the couple little aesthetic things on the outside were different. And,
Red cabs.
It was red, the red truck back in the day. Expeditors used to have red Kenworths, and tons of them. They were like cockroaches. Blue FedEx on the box, and so we literally got out of class. They made us go to a driving school down the road, and then they made us do a test drive, like with an instructor to make sure we could drive these trucks. Again, they don't do that anymore either. Like,
Wow.
They sent me to Atlanta.
for that same thing.
Yep.
I mean,
Don too.
crazy stuff they used to do back then. And then they, once we did that, we had to leave and go to another place and have the back of the box wrapped in just white vinyl, just basic white vinyl, because they were doing a rebranding thing. And if you didn't have a white cab, you couldn't have the FedEx logo on your truck anymore.
Oh my goodness.
So we do all that.
Yep.
All that to be able to go and begin our expediting careers. And I mean, you just literally go back to the truck stop, you sign in. All right, twiddle your thumbs and let's see what happens. But we used to brag about that truck, man. I used to tell people we could just drain the engine full of oil and still go run another 5,000 miles. Like that thing was bulletproof, unless you're in Detroit in the middle of winter. So Eric and I are from South Louisiana. I'd never heard of anti-gel. I didn't know that that diesel has paraffin wax that turns into a gel when it gets super cold. I'd never heard this before in my life. We go up to we're on a load, or I think we were dispatching a load. We hadn't actually picked it up yet, and had the AP running the heater on, and was nice and comfy. And then it was like, all right, it's time to go. So fired the engine up, and I could barely make out the parking space. And then it's like, you know, and it's like, oh, this is not good. Try it again. Okay, something's wrong. Called maintenance. Well, you're at a TA. Do you think you can get it into the shop? And I'm like, yeah, I could probably get it in the shop. It's not gonna be pretty, but I can get in there. So cool. So getting on a list. We're good to go in a couple hours. We get in the shop. They replace the fuel filters, a couple other things, and send us on our way. But we still didn't add anti-gel. We didn't know that was a thing.
Oh no. Get the problem
We
fixed.
thought it was a bad filter.
Yeah, get the problem fixed.
So we just re-gelled the filters back up, right? Didn't think anything of it. Ended up getting towed to, well, obviously then the maintenance guy who thinks we know about that is like, well, clearly something else is wrong. They get us towed over to a Kenworth dealership, and might have been a Caterpillar dealership. Anyways, the next morning we get up, they bring us inside. The guy comes in, he's like, hey, you're all done. Looks like the filters were just gelled up, but we put some 911 in your fuel tanks, and we got those fuel filters replaced for you. Should be good to go. What do you mean gelled? So this guy was like, what do you mean? What I mean? I was like, I don't know what this. I don't know what this means. And so I thought maybe the fuel had turned, like rancid, like gone bad. And he's like, oh no, let me show you. He said when it gets cold, or he told me, he's like, when it gets cold, the fuel has wax and yada yada. And I'm like, oh. And I guess I had a look on my face where he's like, come here. So we actually went out in the shop. He got the old fuel filter. He brought it over to a saw they had, and he literally cut it in half, cut the filter in half, and showed me that it looked like the filter was full of petroleum jelly. It was just nothing liquid at all.
Wow.
It was just pure petroleum jelly looking
Solidified.
stuff. And so he's like, this is paraffin wax that is just gelled. You know, it's fine when the truck's running and it's got a lot of heat and stuff, but when it gets cold enough, it does this. And he's like, you should always use anti-gel. And he said, I don't know which one you use. Call your maintenance guy and he'll tell you which one to get. So we did that and never had that problem again. But that was crazy learning
That's a tough
experience.
lesson twice.
Yeah.
Melissa was asking what's 911.
Oh, 911 is like anti-gel that's on crack. It is super anti-gel, and you really only use it once you've actually gelled up. So it comes in a red bottle, the same like Diesel Power, or whoever it is, Power Service, or rather, they make it. We buy the white bottle, which is their anti-gel. We use that in our trucks. But the red bottle is for once you've already gelled up. The white bottle's not strong enough, so the red bottle is what you use. It's twice the price. It's very expensive. But it doesn't just prevent it. It actually goes in and undoes it, if that makes sense.
Makes a good chemical reaction in there.
Yes.
If you can get it into the filter and fuel line.
Yeah. If you can get the filter and fuel line, great. But if you can't, you get it in the fuel and then replace the filters, does the same thing.
Got it.
So, yeah, that was...
I relied on my team driver to make sure we had anti-gel.
Well, your team driver's from where it gets ice cold, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I was aware of diesel freezing up.
We never even had a diesel. Like, we always had gas engines, never had diesel engines in our vehicles. It just never, even then when I rented trucks and drove them back in the day, when it's 97 degrees outside, you're not really thinking about anti-gel.
So a quick question for people who haven't had to deal with cold weather or thinking about driving and may end up in it. Once fuel has gelled up, does it ungel back into a liquid,
Only,
or is it?
so
chunk?
if you get it hot enough, it will,
Mhm.
right? Or if you put 911 in there, it will clean
fix the
itself.
problem.
It'll fix its problem.
Okay.
But if you completely gel the filter, then you won't have a way to get the fuel into the filter. Does that make sense?
If it's in the filter and gelled, you've already got a problem.
You're already done.
You need a shop.
Correct.
Toad, however else,
Yep.
gimp it.
Then a lot
Looks-
of times you can gimp it because they are not plugged solid. So you may not be able to do 70, but you may be in a position where you can get it off the road, or you have enough
Sure.
power to get you over to a place. The best form of treatment is prevention.
Sure.
It's just I think I'm trying to think how we phrase it with our teams, but if the weather's going to be below 20 degrees and you're going to be parked overnight, treat your tanks. Otherwise, you don't really have to worry about it. Like if you're driving down the road, like say I'm going to top off my fuel tanks and then I'm going to drive 500, 600 miles, not really a concern, because what diesel fuel does is it actually goes from your tank into your high pressure system on your high pressure fuel system on your engine, and it gets really hot during that process, like really hot. And then they only put a little bit of that fuel back into the engine to make it run, and the rest of that fuel gets sent right back to the fuel tanks. And so you constantly have this loop of piping hot, crazy hot fuel going right back into your diesel tanks. That's why if you ever touch your diesel tanks, even in the middle of winter, they're usually warm if you've been running, because you're just getting that hot fuel right back into your fuel tanks. So it doesn't have a chance to gel. But once you're sitting and you turn that engine off, that stops, and you've got a tiny thin piece of aluminum as your only insulated barrier between your fuel and the outside elements. And if you see people, like especially in Canada, or people that run strictly the north in the middle of wintertime, you'll see insulated blankets that they have around their fuel tanks
Oh, interesting.
because they're running so cold. Or like when you get to Alaska, even keeping the engine running won't help it. You're still going to have that gel start to form on the outside of that fuel tank, like the inside wall of the fuel tank.
Oh,
So they put an insulated blanket on there to help keep it
I wasn't aware of that.
nice and warm. Which they do the same thing with Traegers, right? Like Traeger grills, don't they have that insulated blanket to help them when it's really cold outside? So it's really cool to see the little things like that. Just like up north, you'll see a lot of people have
The winter fronts.
the winter fronts, which are just like little snap-on grill covers, because you'll cool your engine down too much if it's cold outside.
With all the cold air
yeah.
coming through the engine, it cools it down
Yep.
too much.
And power steering will freeze.
It will.
I learned the hard way going to Alaska.
Yeah. Yep. And again, for what we do, it definitely decreases performance.
Sure.
Because we don't have those on our trucks. It decreases performance, but not a lot. Like, because you'll find yourself one day in North Dakota, and in 2 days you'll be in Laredo. Like,
Sure.
it's kind of all over the place. And the like the DD13, the Cascadias, the Westerns we run, they don't even have the snap things for them like they do older trucks. The systems have gotten smart enough. They'll literally, like your hot coolant that's in your engine, they won't even put it in the radiator if it doesn't need it. If the temperature of the engine's running too cold, it just won't pump the water there. It'll let that water warm up inside the engine.
Interesting.
So it's
Can I put a Christmas wreath on the front of my truck to keep it warm?
I was going to say, at the time weather starts getting cold, that's Halloween, Thanksgiving ish. You can put your little skeleton on the front.
I know what I mean. Like, will that block some of that air?
I tell you what, I don't tell people not to do that. But if you get pulled over by a cop and for some reason you don't have it secured properly and they give you a ticket for it, it's your ticket. That's what I always say.
I was joking about keeping the engine warm.
I don't think we've never did a wreath. I don't think we've ever done anything on the front.
We were always moving from one truck to the other too
Yeah.
much. It wasn't worth investing in any decor and theming.
We did a piece of cardboard once on that first Kenworth we had. We did
Yeah,
a
that
piece
was a rough truck to begin with.
We did a piece of cardboard on the front because we were having trouble getting the engine warm enough while we were running from like Great Falls, Montana to like somewhere in New York, and we did have to. But that was an old Kenworth that we don't even run those trucks anymore. But that
Wow.
was
Wow.
And I think a good philosophy as far as anti-gel goes, little anti-gel is a lot cheaper than a filter
Yes.
replacement
Absolutely.
after a tow,
Yeah.
a truck stop.
I
So
think the
if
big thing with anti-gel, don't just dump it in right before
That
you
was going to be my question.
dump it in an hour before you know you're going to be stopped. You know, if I know that, like, hey, I'm going to be stopping in Chicago, I don't know why you would, but I'm going to be stopping in Chicago. Okay, well, in, like, Toledo, top your truck off with anti-gel. So by the time you get over there, it's
Well-
already – and also make sure you run it through if you're your APU. And if you have a reefer unit, make sure you run it through that too, because those all will freeze. They all run off the same diesel tanks.
So I would say don't top it off with anti-gel.
No, please don't.
Yeah. So
That would be
add,
expensive.
add the prescribed amount of anti-gel and then top it off with fuel
Absolutely.
so that anti-gel gets a chance to flow through all the systems. And again, like Patrick said, run your APU, run your reefer,
S-bar?
run your S-bar heater, so you make sure you get that anti-gel through the lines and mixed in with your
So
with
if
your
I've
fuel.
come from the south on my 2 tanks of gas, fuel, and diesel, and now I've arrived in Detroit where it's chilly, and that's my parking destination, but I fuel before I park, I'm going to put my anti-gel in the tanks first, fuel, park, continue to let my engine run for an hour. If I have a reefer, run that for an hour. Run my S-bar heater, obviously, because I'm cold, because it's cold weather, and also run the APU, and then eventually shut my engine off and the reefer off after about an hour to get that in. Is that how that would typically work?
So ideally, I would say this is where we're professional drivers.
Yeah.
So the professionalism comes in. I know that Detroit is 0 degrees outside, and that's my
Ah.
final destination. So let me stop. If I'm coming up from the south, let me stop in just north of Indianapolis or in
That makes
Effingham or
sense.
something like that. And let me go ahead and add that anti-gel in there, top off my tanks, and then not get diesel in Detroit. That way it's well mixed, and I can run that reefer en route, and everything's fine. So when I get there,
I can go to bed.
I can go to
Not
bed.
worried
I'm good
about
to
it.
go.
That makes sense.
If it sneaks up on you, which it can happen, sometimes you get somewhere and they say the weather's going to be one thing and it's different. It does happen. Mistakes happen, right? So if you find yourself in that predicament, absolutely run that engine, idle it up high. Almost all of our trucks can be high idled, which is where you get those engine RPMs up to close to 1,000. Let that thing go for an hour. It's going to mix those tanks up really good, and set your alarm and then get up and crank it off. Don't let it idle all night.
Sure, no.
Because then you'll have new issues, which are emissions treatment issues. You'll have your DPF filter will start to clog. So you don't want to idle that truck all night. You can do that. That'll kind of have the same effect.
It's a part of trip planning, really.
But it's really part of trip planning, just like you should be checking the weather. You should be checking highway conditions throughout your trip and that sort of thing.
Which is the expedited lifestyle.
Yep, it is. It's again, it's going from that, like, I'm not going on vacation, I'm a professional driver. When you download, like, Pilot's app and a few other people's fuel apps, you literally have to check, like, are you a car person? Do you have an RV? Or are you a professional driver? We're professional drivers.
Yeah.
And so that's part of being a professional driver, is the trip planning aspect of it. I have to jump back real quick and just wrap this up. So we have more for you next week. That T600 Kenworth that Eric and I drove for Expediter Services, that the second one we got into, one day after we got the first one, that thing was solid, had a Cat C11 engine in it, no lift gate, no lift axle, had a factory sleeper, had a Thermo King tri-pack reefer, APU, no reefer unit. That thing was bulletproof. It was awesome. Love that truck. And in May of 2013, Eric and I decided, 6 months in, we're buying a truck. This is our business.
Wow.
We really like this.
I thought the lifestyle was really fun.
We just made it through summer. Spring had already started coming, and it was really becoming fun. And so we're like, we want to buy a truck. We scraped together our pennies, realized we didn't have any credit for a truck. And we did what a lot of people did in that time, which was went to Expediter Services and said, hey, we want to buy a truck. And they said, we've got a few for you to look at. Tell which one you want, and let's make it happen. And they got us started by buying buying our first truck from them. and it was a very nice jump from driver for them to owner-operator with them. We ended up buying a 2008 Kenworth T660 factory sleeper, no lift gate, no lift axle, dry van, identical, except instead of a C11, Caterpillar C11 engine, it had a Caterpillar C13 Acert. And we'll pick up next week.
Ooh.
That was a great story, Patrick. Can't wait until we hear more from you next week.
Thank you, Vince.
Thanks for sharing that. If you have ideas or questions for us, please reach out to us. You can email us at
theouterbeltpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can leave a comment below this video or a comment or review on your favorite podcast app if you're listening to the podcast.
You can also text us.
Yes, you can.
The link is there if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast.
Yeah, it's in the show notes there. So thanks again for coming along for the journey with us, listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And whatever button you see in front of you, thumbs up, thumbs down, press them all. Share this if you think there's anybody that's like, hey, you want to hear a little something about how these fools started this company? You can share that. And this, we're going to be talking about this a lot over the next several episodes, and hopefully get to share a little more about where Eric and I came from and how we got all this going, and maybe even let you know why we do some of the things we do, because history dictates a lot of what we do now, right? So I look forward to it. It's been nice going down memory lane. I know there's been a couple times off camera Jerry's just been over here howling, laughing because he just remembers some of the same stuff, because we got started. He's a little bit earlier than we are, but still in a similar vein, and just, I think it's great. Can't wait. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and in the meantime, stay safe, make good decisions.
Don't leave money on the table.
And keep those wheels a-turning.
Hey,
Yes?
why was Cinderella so bad at soccer?
I don't know.
Because she kept running away from the ball. Bye.
So you're saying the ball like a dance?
She ran away from the ball and lost her shoe on the stairs.
I know.
And Prince whatever.
I kept thinking of where is there this Indiana Jones-esque scene where there is a ball
Coming at
chasing
Cinderella.
her? I'm like,
that's great.
what did you
That
see?
makes it even funnier.
Did I see the Disney version? You saw the DreamWorks version? What happened here? Oh, so confusing.
that's awesome.
Sorry.